So let's talk about one of the most remarkable and, frankly, successful military units in all of ancient history, the Sacred Band of Thebes. They were an elite fighting force, and their secret weapon? Well, it was as radical back then as it is fascinating today. Let's get into it. You know, the philosopher Plato once dreamed up what he thought would be the perfect army. His theory was that soldiers who loved each other would fight with this incredible, unparalleled bravery. I mean, who would ever show cowardice in front of their beloved? It was a really beautiful, powerful idea, but, it was just a theory. But what if a city-state actually took that idea, that philosophical experiment, and made it real? Well, one city did. Welcome to Thebes, back in the 4th century BC. Okay, so how was this legendary unit actually put together? Because its structure was, to put it mildly, unlike any other army in the entire ancient world. The Sacred Band was an elite force made up of exactly 300 men, but what was truly revolutionary was how they were picked. These guys were chosen purely for their skill and their merit, not because of their family name or how much money they had. For the time, that was a truly radical concept. And here it is, the absolute core of their design. These 300 men were organized into 150 pairs of lovers. The idea was that they would train together, live together, and fight side by side. The thinking was that a man would fight more fiercely than ever before to protect the person he loved standing right next to him. Now, these relationships fit a pretty common model in ancient Greece. You had an older, more experienced soldier, the Erastus, and a younger partner, the Eromenos. And this wasn't just a romance. It was a really deep connection built on mentorship and mutual honor. The older man was literally responsible for the younger's growth as a citizen and a soldier. You can imagine the kind of unbreakable devotion that would create on the battlefield. And let's be clear, this was a professional fighting force through and through. They were a full-time, state-funded army living and training together day in and day out. Under their commander, Pelopidas, their job was simple and brutal. They were the tip of the spear, the shock troops meant to break the enemy line by taking out their best soldiers and their leaders. So you have this incredibly unique structure. But how did it actually work in a real fight? Well, their first huge test was about to come, at a place called Tegera. So in 375 BC, the Sacred Band is on the march, and they unexpectedly run smack into a much, much larger Spartan force. This was it. This was the moment of truth. Just look at these numbers. The Thebans were outnumbered by at least 3-1, and they were facing the most feared soldiers in all of Greece, the Spartans. One soldier supposedly said, "We've fallen into our enemy's hands." But their commander, Pelopidas, just shot back, "And why not they into ours?" And incredibly, against all odds, the Sacred Band didn't just hold their own. They charged, they shattered the Spartan lines, and they won a shocking victory. As the historian Plutarch tells us, this was the first time in history a Spartan army had been beaten by a smaller force. The myth of Spartan invincibility? It was just broken. The win at Tegera was a stunning upset, for sure, but it was just the beginning. Just 4 years later, the Sacred Band would play a key role in a battle that didn't just beat Sparta, it completely shattered its empire. Meet the Theban general Epaminondas, truly one of history's great military geniuses. At the Battle of Leuctra, he was facing a massive Spartan army, and he knew a straightforward fight was certain death. He needed a completely new plan, a radical one. Again, the Thebans were massively outnumbered. The Spartans had almost twice the infantry and way more than double the elite troops. So yeah, how do you possibly beat an army like that? Epaminondas basically threw out the entire rulebook of ancient warfare. First, instead of a balanced line, he stacked his left wing, making it 50 men deep. Then, he advanced at an angle, so his superpowered left flank would crash into the elite Spartan right wing before the rest of the armies even touched. The Sacred Band charged out in front to hit the Spartans and pin them down. And then came the hammer blow. That 50-deep phalanx smashed into the Spartan line with unstoppable force and just crushed it. It was a tactical revolution. For 33 years, the Sacred Band of Thebes was considered invincible. But their story, like all great stories, has to have an ending. At Chaeronea, the Thebans and their allies faced a totally new kind of army. It was the Macedonian phalanx, led by King Philip II and his teenage son, who you might know as Alexander the Great. The long spears of the Macedonians just proved to be too much for the traditional Greek soldiers. The Greek lines eventually broke and ran, but not the sacred band. They were surrounded, completely overwhelmed, with no hope of victory, but they held their ground. They refused to retreat, they refused to surrender, and they fought together until every last one of them was killed. After the battle, Philip of Macedon himself walked the field. And when he came across the 300 bodies of the sacred band, all lying together where they made their stand, he didn't celebrate. He wept. His words are this incredible testament, a tribute from their conqueror to the unbelievable valor and devotion of these soldiers. For centuries, this amazing story of heroism was exactly that, a story, told by historians like Plutarch. But then, archaeology gave that story a voice in stone. The people of Thebes built this incredible stone lion to mark the mass grave of their fallen heroes, and for more than 2,000 years, it stood there as a silent guardian over their final resting place. And this part is just incredible. The monument, it was eventually buried by time, completely lost. But then, in 1818, an English architect, using an ancient Roman travel guide, basically rediscovers it. Later, when they excavated the site, they uncovered a mass grave with the skeletons of 254 men all laid out in perfect rows, the actual physical proof of the legendary sacred band. You know, the story of the sacred band really forces us to ask a big question. For over 30 years, they proved that an army bound together by love could be one of the most powerful forces on Earth. Their legacy really leaves you wondering, what's a soldier's truest weapon? Is it the spear in their hand? Or is it the heart that tells them why they're fighting?